If I'm the Cleveland Browns, seeing what is transpiring now, I would love to understand your thought process of just how they're managing Shedeur. Is it a realistic situation for him to play this year, or what should we expect from your own?
Well, from what I'm told, Dylan Gabriel has been better, has played better, and is more ready, whatever that means. But this is what I was told. I think if you can sit and watch Flacco and understand preparing.
The NFL owners are sweating harder than a coach calling his last time out. And it's all because Cam Newton just dropped a bomb about Shedeur Sanders that shook the whole league. Imagine billionaire owners in their $1,000 suits pacing around, realizing one rookie quarterback just flipped their picture-perfect playbook upside down. Whatever Shedeur said or did clearly hit a nerve, because now the league's top dogs are scrambling like they just fumbled on the 1-yard line. And trust me, this story gets crazy.
Source tells me that it wasn't just the Baltimore Ravens. It was 3 teams. The Cleveland Browns, the Philadelphia Eagles, and it also was Baltimore Ravens. Now, this is where the perspective gets skewed, because why would Shedeur not want to go to Baltimore? If any team has been on the cutting edge of saying we figured out the recipe of drafting and developing good players to play great and elite, that's one of the teams that does it at a high level. Why not go to...
If you're locked in, hit that subscribe button. It helps way more than you think. The NFL draft has always been billionaire playground territory, a bunch of suits pretending they're playing fantasy football with real college players. But this year, something went off the rails somewhere between the fancy cigars, slick leather chairs, and those tired, "we're building for the future" speeches. That's when Cam Newton came through with the biggest reverse card the league's ever seen.
First habit that I've seen him have is he does not step up in the pocket.
Actually, scratch that. Shedeur Sanders. Yeah, that's Shedeur, the same one who's been slinging 10,000 yards like he's playing catch in his backyard. Word is, he straight up rejected 3 NFL teams on draft night, one after another like it was nothing. Not 1, not 2, 3! If confidence had its own Instagram page, that moment would have been posted with the caption, "Mood."
Now, we know reports came out in the midst of the Baltimore Ravens and the Cleveland Browns game on Sunday that Adam Schefter reported that Shedeur Sanders declined the option to be drafted by the Baltimore Ravens in the 5th round at the 141st pick. And a lot of people had a lot to say, and Cam Newton was on ESPN First Take, and he stated his position on what he thought about Shedeur Sanders declining that option.
But here's where the NFL owners completely lost it. These guys are used to pulling the strings like puppet masters. Normally, a rookie sits at the draft crying happy tears, hugging grandma, and thanking Jesus for getting picked by the Jacksonville Jaguars, ready to spend the next 3 years eating turf and collecting splinters on the bench. But not Shedeur. He wasn't sitting there like some starstruck freshman grateful for crumbs. Nah, he was moving like a boss at a speed dating event, swiping left on billion-dollar franchises like they were desperate Tinder matches. The audacity had owners choking on their cigars.
This, and I think if I'm Shedeur, you would ideally want to learn behind a guy like Lamar Jackson for this particular reason and this particular reason only. Not a lot of players can really cope with your star power, with your stardom, right? And let's really give credit where credit's due. At 28 years old, being a phenomenal athlete, the thing that I respect a guy like Lamar Jackson the most, we've never heard him have any off-the-field issues.
And Cam Newton, oh, he wasn't about to let this one slide into rumor land. He came with facts and that signature swagger, delivering it in a way that made people wonder if he was preaching gospel or dropping a new fashion line. Cam laid it out crystal clear. Shedeur Sanders had options, real ones, and instead of letting his future get passed around like a stadium hot dog, he took full control of his destiny. The NFL media, they couldn't handle it. They twisted the story, calling Shedeur spoiled, entitled "even disrespectful." But nah, the truth was spicier. He wasn't being arrogant, he was being strategic. Let's hit rewind. Shedeur was projected as a top 10 pick, but somehow the numbers didn't make sense, unless those numbers were cooked up by teams scared stiff of a rookie who actually knew his worth. Now, about those 3 teams, these weren't random draws out of a hat. First up, the Baltimore Ravens. Sounds great on paper, right? Until you realize that spot means sitting behind Lamar Jackson forever. That's not mentorship, that's career purgatory. Shedeur took one look at that and said, "Nah, I'm not signing up to be Lamar's stunt double."
And look, Shedeur is not an athletic quarterback where he's going to play a different game. Obviously, he's more athletic than Flacco, but I said when they drafted him, I thought that he'd start a game this year. And hopefully he does, just to get that opportunity. I think what surprised me is when he manipulated the draft and told the Ravens not to draft him. That, to me, you're going to be in a first-class organization. You're going to learn from a lot of different people there.
Next up, the Philadelphia Eagles, another powerhouse squad with Jalen Hurts fresh off a monster contract and a future locked up tighter than Fort Knox. Shedeur knew exactly how that story would go. Get drafted, get benched, and slowly fade into the background while fans forget your name even existed. Philly probably thought they were doing him a solid, but Shedeur saw it different. Respect doesn't mean being turned into a permanent bench decoration. And here's the moment that broke the internet. Was Shedeur being cocky, or was he just smart? The old school crowd wagged their fingers, calling him disrespectful, saying he hadn't paid his dues. But Cam Newton wasn't buying that tired talk. Cam flipped the whole script, saying this wasn't arrogance, it was respect. Respect for Lamar. Respect for Jalen. Shedeur didn't want to sit around praying for someone else's downfall just to get a chance. He wanted his shot, and he knew exactly where he'd never get it.
Now, more evidence and more facts have come out that it wasn't just the Baltimore Ravens that was on the clock to pick Shedeur Sanders. I said this to you guys in a previous video. Why come we haven't heard about the teams that didn't want to select Shedeur Sanders? Now, all of a sudden, 4 or 5 months later, we're bringing up stuff that don't even make no sense, has nothing to do with nothing. Everything surrounding around Shedeur Sanders, like I told you guys.
The fan base went crazy. Half of them were cheering for Shedeur Sanders like he was a rebel king, clapping him up for swerving those big-name franchises like a picky foodie turning down drive-through meals. The other half, they were losing their minds, calling it a reckless business decision, convinced he'd torched his career before it even began. Meanwhile, the NFL's billionaire owners sat in their marble towers fuming. Since when did the peasants get to pick their castles? Because let's be honest, this wasn't just about one player. This was a full-blown power shift. And billionaires hate power shifts, unless it's their stock portfolios jumping. And you can't ignore the Deion Sanders factor. Shedeur wasn't raised by just any dad. He was raised by primetime himself. The league thought they were hosting a selection show, but Shedeur flipped it into a negotiation table. That's when Cleveland entered the chat. The risk, the gamble, the chaos that somehow made sense. Sure, it's a franchise fueled by heartbreak and confusion, but it was the only spot where Shedeur wouldn't have to play backup to a superstar. In Cleveland, the QB1 path wasn't blocked by legends. It was blocked by placeholders fans barely remember week to week, and Shedeur saw that crack wide open.
An organization that is not good at developing quarterbacks. Ownership hasn't been good. Team hasn't been good. You get bad habits. And I think being in a good organization and understanding top to bottom would have been more important. But I think he'll get a chance. I just don't know if you get a chance for a bad team, then people say, yep, see, told you he couldn't play.
Yeah. Right. Well, see, with that, hearing that he did not want to go to the Baltimore Ravens was a definite head scratcher. But when you have certain other details about that situation come out, when he does have the utmost respect for him.
Now let's zoom out. This is way bigger than one draft pick or a viral Cam Newton soundbite. This moment marks the start of a new era where players don't just smile for cameras and say, "I'm blessed." They take control. They're calling their own shots, turning down billion-dollar offers like bad Tinder matches, and betting on themselves so boldly that owners are sweating through their suits. And right in the center of it all, Shedeur Sanders, the new face of player empowerment. But here's the million-dollar question. Did he just rewrite the rules of draft day? Or is he about to become the cautionary tale parents use when teaching kids about knowing their place? The clock's ticking, and Cleveland's a minefield waiting to blow. Cam Newton swears Shedeur's ready, but fans are split right down the middle. Because if Shedeur can stare down 3 NFL franchises and say thanks but no thanks, what's stopping the next wave of rookies from doing the same thing? Imagine the chaos if quarterbacks start acting like free agents before signing their rookie deals. That's every owner's nightmare. Suddenly, they're not the ones holding the leash anymore.
What he said about Shedeur, by the way, was pretty spot on in terms of, like, who cares that he said it. And if you have doubts about how good he would be, I threw this out there yesterday. Like, if I look around this league right now and I look at some of the quarterback play that's been going on around this league, like, do I think that he couldn't put up at least like Spencer Rattler numbers to this point, or JJ McCarthy numbers because he's been bad, or Russell Wilson, who just got...
Cam Newton didn't just spill the tea, he poured gasoline on it, lit the match, and roasted marshmallows over the flames. He exposed the story with pure joy, laughing at how the media tried to paint Shedeur as arrogant. To Cam, this wasn't ego. It was chess, not checkers. And the look on those NFL execs' faces said it all. They were not ready for a rookie quarterback who actually had a GPS locked on self-preservation instead of blind loyalty. Now let's get into that Ravens situation because it's straight up comedy gold. The front office probably thought they were handing Shedeur the golden ticket. Come learn under Lamar Jackson, soak up greatness, and maybe, after 10 years, we'll toss you a pity start if Lamar catches the flu. Please, Shedeur saw right through that script. He wasn't auditioning for a background role in the Lamar Jackson movie. He wanted to write his own screenplay. Then you got the Eagles walking around like they're running a quarterback utopia. But let's be real. They locked Jalen Hurts down with enough guaranteed money to buy a small country. No rookies breaking into that fortress. Philly probably thought Shedeur would be honored to rock a clipboard like it was a crown jewel. Instead, he treated that offer like a spam email. Respecting Hurts didn't mean sacrificing his own career.
He's been a stand-up guy, and if all of our opinions has always led to his on-field performance. Not a lot of people can relate to what Shedeur Sanders has been through in his whole life. And that right there serves even more to make him a better player because it's the totality of the position. And I think Lamar Jackson would have been able to relate to him in many ways.
Such a good point. But how many people are coming out of college thinking about learning instead of playing?
Now, Cleveland, this is where things get fun. The Browns bless their chaotic hearts, treat quarterbacks like disposable coffee cups, use one up, toss it out, grab another. Every season, there's a new face under center, sometimes 2, occasionally 3, just to keep the drama spicy. If you're a quarterback in Cleveland, you either flame out, break down, or somehow earn local legend status just for surviving the circus. It's quarterback Thunderdome. But for Shedeur, that wasn't a red flag. It was a flashing neon opportunity. Why waste years standing behind Lamar or Jalen when you can take your shot in Cleveland, where the bar for competent is buried somewhere underground? The NFL's old guard hates that kind of confidence. And speaking of traditionalists, let's talk about Alex Smith. He couldn't wait to chirp that Shedeur blew it, that he should have just taken whatever franchise tossed him a bone. Easy words coming from a guy who spent half his career being treated like a placeholder while his teams auditioned his replacements. Of course, he wants the next generation to follow that same miserable path. Misery loves company. But Shedeur? He didn't come to the NFL to clock in and play nice. He came to flip tables and rewrite the script completely.
5th round pick. Put your head down and grind. The game is not just about completing the pass. The game is more focused on the neck up. Hey, what's my side adjust? Hey, who am I? Hotter reps to be had, hopefully, throughout this preseason process.
Fans turned social media into an all-out war zone. One side was yelling that Shedeur Sanders was a visionary, rewriting the rule book before even taking his first professional snap. The other side was convinced he was writing checks his rookie arm couldn't possibly cash. And right in the middle of all that noise were the NFL owners, finally realizing their so-called draft picks aren't cattle. They're businessmen. That's what really burned them. Because if players start thinking for themselves, what's next? Guaranteed respect? Control over their own careers? Owners can't stomach that. It breaks their precious system. And looming over it all was Deion Sanders, primetime himself. He's been whispering the same mantra into Shedeur's ear since Pee Wee ball. Never settle, never bow, and never let anyone else steer your destiny. The Browns might be dysfunctional, sure, but dysfunction breeds chances. Shedeur isn't stepping into Cleveland to hold a clipboard and smile politely. He's walking straight into a quarterback carousel where one good drive could launch him into the starter conversation. Compare that to Baltimore, where he could throw perfect passes for 5 years and still never touch the field. Or Philly, where his name would collect dust behind Hurts's shadow. Cleveland might be messy, but in that chaos lies pure opportunity.
Being the 5th round pick, you may make the team, you may not make the team. You may make practice squad, you may not make practice squad. But this is the kicker though, Biggie. You still got to be a professional because there's 31 other teams that are also looking too. How you go about your meetings on a day-to-day, how you perform, the antics, all the things that they don't really talk about, but they see. People are paying close attention to Shedeur Sanders. You want to say, oh, they just humbling him. Like, no, bro, he's no different than any other 5th round pick in the NFL. It's a grind. Everybody who gets selected, even 1st round picks, have a threshold of pay.
And Shedeur, armed with pure confidence and a stubborn streak a mile long, decided to bet on chaos. This right here is the new NFL storyline. Rookies calling their own shots. Not all of them, of course. Most will still cry on stage, hug mom, and thank their high school coach for getting drafted by the Houston Texans, but the precedent's been set. If you've got the stats, the guts, and the nerve, you can play chess with billionaires. And that terrifies the old guard, because once one player proves it's possible, the dam starts to crack. Now the real question, how will this story age? Will Shedeur be remembered as the quarterback who refused to play sidekick and forced the NFL to evolve? Or will he become the cautionary tale of the kid who got too big for his cleats? He turned down billion-dollar franchises like they were dollar menu items, making NFL owners sweat in places they didn't even know could sweat. That's not just bold, it's revolutionary. And whether revolutionaries rise or fall, one thing's for sure, they leave the league forever changed.